The London Plan, if approved in its present form, includes a number of fire safety requirements for the construction of new developments in light of Grenfell. This will create extra demands on the brigade, for example, for fire safety inspections and advice. What extra resources will you need to cope with this, and from when will it be reflected in the budget?
So I'm really hoping that, as you know, we work with the London Plan, that it shouldn't mean that we'll require extra fire safety resources, because we're sincerely hoping that it'll mean the new buildings in London are built to much higher standards of fire safety in the first place. So obviously the teams will be working at the initial stages, but we're hoping that the buildings themselves being safer, they will hopefully reduce the pressure on our fire safety team. One of the things that we are concerned about, of course, is competencies and skills levels of professional people involved, not only in the design and the development, but the build of those buildings to ensure that they are safe in the first place. And obviously we're working with the planning team on the implementation of the London Plan and looking about how we can provide support to written guidance and programmes and sharing our own best practice.
And this year's budget submission to the Mayor, before any application of new savings proposals, indicate the various budget gaps leading up to £24.5 million in 22-23. The flexibility reserve enables the gap to be bridged for the next couple of years, but after that, from 2021 onwards, there's a significant and growing black hole. How do you see that being filled? That's probably a question for Fiona, actually.
Thank you. I think one of the problems we faced after the fire at Grenfell Tower was obviously that quite a lot of the big ticket items we thought we might be able to pilot in order to help meet the budget gap aren't really palatable anymore. So the day crewing in central London, for example, and the alternate crewing. So we're working on trying to identify different ways of meeting the budget gap, but actually it's proving quite challenging to work out how we can do that and maintain frontline services at the level they are. So obviously we're putting in submissions to the comprehensive spending review. The Mayor's done what he can in terms of increasing the council tax precept to support the work of the brigade and support our future flexibility reserve. But at the moment, I think it's fair to say that we don't have a definitive answer about how we can meet that gap.
Thanks. And coming back to you, Commissioner, in light of Grenfell, how are you reviewing and amending command and control procedures to avoid confusion at major incidents, as well as addressing the IT inadequacies and failures on control units, which failures predated Grenfell, according to evidence to the inquiry?
Yeah, so obviously there are a number of strands of the work we're doing at the moment. One of those is reviewing our operational policy and procedures to ensure they're fit for purpose, to ensure they comply with national guidance, and obviously looking at how we match into national operational guidance. Obviously we work very closely with the team. They're embedded in London Fire Brigade but do the national work. So part of that is about establishing those to begin with. Then there are a number of range of other opportunities. Some of those are about looking at our new command unit replacement project and ensuring that we have the right IT in place to provide the support on the fire ground. Part of that also is about the communications on the fire ground and the communications from the fire ground back into control. And that's obviously part of the programme of replacement breathing apparatus equipment at the moment, includes the communication interface. We're hoping to look towards new technology that will involve Bluetooth communication, which will involve much better for our firefighters. We're also making sure that, obviously the replacement of ESN and the airwave, we're keeping close monitoring on that to ensure that that will also assist, because it's all part of that package of command and control. And also we're undertaking a review of training, which will of course include incident command training for all of our officers from junior officer level up into including myself.
Well, thanks for that. That was the next point I was going to come on to about communication. What changes are you making to procedures for handling fire survival guidance calls and for better communication between control and fireground commanders during major incidents?
So we're looking at various different options about the exchange protocol of information between fire survival guidance people and ourselves, and the fire survival guidance people in control and obviously onto the fire ground at the moment, and reviewing the fire survival guidance policy as part of that procedure as well, and I expect that changes will occur. We also want to look at having a scalable approach to managing fire survival guidance calls, whether it's 1, 2, 3 or 4, or the large, very large unprecedented volumes we saw on the night of the Grenfell Tower fire. We want to also test through our own policies and procedures. We're doing some very realistic testing using our own control units, actually taking them down to Merton and having a testing situation with our control officers there, doing real life trialling of it. A lot of it is about making sure that we have the right training in place, not only for our control staff, but for our officers on the incident ground and those who are managing the command units.
Okay, and lastly, following on from that, in what circumstances and how would that stay put advice be changed? Who makes the decision and when, and how is that communicated to and by control into residents?
So obviously stay put advice is a building structure. It's predicated on the fact that buildings should maintain structural integrity for 60 minutes to allow us to go into the building and to extinguish a fire and people to remain safe in places that are not the original compartment of fire. Obviously there are situations that we know about where the buildings still have flammable cladding applied to them, where a temporary situation is in place where the stay put advice is no longer, we believe, fit for purpose. Those have already got underwrites on those buildings. We are aware of where those buildings are, and we are also working very closely with the owners of those buildings to ensure they have the right people in the situation, so they have wakeful watches and means of alerting residents in the event of a fire. Obviously, any incident commander on the fire ground is within their own judgment call to make any risk assessment based to a fire they're attending and decide whether or not the situation they see in front of them is something that would require people to be able to leave the building. We're still faced with the problem that the majority of our residential properties inside London are single staircase. So should we wish to evacuate people from those buildings, there is still the risk if we try and evacuate people down a single staircase route that we are trying to come up through and we are trying to use for our firefighting equipment. So there are all those factors in place, the means of alerting people in the event of a fire in a building where there's no central means, there's no alarm, there's no current way of actually contacting all those people. All that will be subject, of course, to the ongoing review that we're taking part in, but we are looking at all those factors now, and where we have the enhanced high-rise attendance that we've put in place now. So any building that we believe has cladding on it, we respond differently. We've enhanced our high-rise attendance. Any building where the callers state that there is fire on the outside of the building, we are now automatically dispatching 10 pumping appliances plus an aerial appliance plus the relevant officers to get the crews there very early stages should we need to evacuate.
Okay, thank you.